Welcome to Chacha's Queendom. Today we're making soup. And of all the Chinese soups, I think the most famous one is the Eggdrop soup. And of all the Eggdrop soups, the one that we're gonna make today will make them proud. It's one of the fanciest Eggdrop soups that you can find. But when I say fancy, doesn't necessarily mean that it's difficult. This one is actually quite simple and it's light but very flavorful. How do we make a light soup very flavorful? No, not MSG, okay? Like I say, not all Chinese food is about MSG. Remember that, okay? Today we only need 4 simple ingredients. One of them is the Cremini mushrooms. We're gonna use those mushrooms, thinly slice them to make a mushroom-based broth. And mushroom is famous for the umami taste. That's why you don't need MSG, you just need a lot of mushrooms in there. And the second one is my secret weapon. So normally in this soup, people use ground beef. But I have 2 reasons why I don't use ground beef. First is, if you ever saute a ground beef or ground pork, you know how hard it is to separate them in the wok, or not to mention in a soup, right? They're gonna clump up like a meatball. So I don't want that hassle. So I actually cheat. I use the Hotpot slice, and then I thinly slice those slices to make them tiny little bit like strip. So when you put it in, it's light, and then they separate like nothing else. And for my family, I like to kick it up a notch, so I actually use the Wagyu short rib Hotpot slice. You don't have to use the Wagyu beef, but if you know me, I personally like to go fancy or go home. And the Wagyu beef though, the extra fat does give that intense of the beefy flavor. So I like to use that. But even if you don't use the Wagyu beef, I do recommend you to use the short rib Hotpot slice, because the short rib is really tender and that's what we need for the soup that we're making today. Before we get started, remember to subscribe to my channel and click that bell button to get notified when there's new video coming out, and also click that like button to give me a little support. All right, let's get started. First, let's mix up some cornstarch with equal parts of water and mix it well so we can use it to thicken the soup later. And of course, this is an Eggdrop soup, so we're gonna need an egg. Crack it up and beat it really well. We're gonna thinly slice these Cremini mushrooms to make a mushroom broth to give us this umami flavor. Roughly chop your cilantro. Finally, the Wagyu beef short rib Hotpot slice. We're gonna stack them on each other, and then we're gonna thinly slice them into these tiny little strips. Like this one. Boil a pot of hot water. Put in all the sliced Cremini mushrooms. We're gonna use all of them. They're gonna make us this yummy mushroom broth with umami flavor. We're gonna give it a quick stir, bring it to boil. Once it's boiled, we're gonna turn the heat down and cover the lid. Let it simmer for 10 minutes. Just keep in mind that this mushroom broth can be made ahead of time, so you can simmer it for 10 minutes and turn the heat off and just let it sit until you're ready to make dinner. And when you're ready to make dinner, you just turn the heat back on, bring it back to boil, and continue cooking the rest of the ingredients, which is Wagyu beef now. Make sure you cook them in small batches. And as you can see, once you put them into the hot broth, they just fall off the chopsticks and break apart like nothing else, with no sweat. And this is why we're using this to replace the ground beef. Now let's season with some salt to your taste. Once it's seasoned to your taste, you want to put in the cornstarch mixture to thicken it. And then once you put it in, you want to stir it right away so you thicken the soup instead of getting these tapioca clumps in the soup. And whenever you thicken a soup, you want to bring it back to hard boil to make sure the final consistency is what you want. And then it's time for the egg drop. But as typical Cha-Cha, I totally hit the wrong button when I was showing you how to make the egg drop. So now, even though the egg drops are in the soup already, I still want to show you how I made these little tiny lacy-like egg drop. So first, you want to use the chopsticks. Start with small circle, but fast whirlpool motion. And then you slowly drop in the eggs. You continue this fast whirlpool motion for 3 to 5 seconds even after the egg drops are all in, so the eggs have time to set. But remember, you want to do small circle, otherwise when you do a fast whirlpool motion, you're gonna splash everywhere. Last but not least is you want to put in the cilantro for the final touch of the look and the flavor. And that's it. Your work is done. Look at this beautiful, tasty, simple but flavorful egg drop soup. It is so good. You definitely want to give it a try. I hope you like this video and the recipe, and if you do, please remember to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.